Hello again. This is the fifth and final session of a series of 5. Marina is going to discuss again with us today everything you need to know about the Community Schemes Ombud. It's obviously a new thing. The Act was changed a few months or years ago, recently rather, and it's good to know if there are issues in a scheme, what the solution is, where to go to have it sorted out. Enjoy.
Hi and welcome to episode 5 of Demystifying Sectional Title. It's the last episode in this series, and today I'm going to share with you information about the Community Scheme Ombud service. You may or may not have heard about it, but certainly if you are selling in community schemes, you do need to be aware of it because it's had a huge impact on the community scheme industry. An ombud is a guardian. So an ombudsman is an umbrella body which regulates all the complaints coming in about that particular industry. And you might have heard of the banking ombud, you might have heard about the insurance ombud. There's an ombud in almost every industry. And how did the Community Scheme Ombud service come about? Well, close to 20 years ago, the Department of Land Affairs put out a tender for a lead consultant to come on board and to look at the possibility of a community scheme ombud. And that was due to many consumer complaints about how there was no really formal regulatory body, and that you'd had to go to attorneys and it would cost you a lot of money if you had disputes within these schemes. And I can corroborate the fact that there are so many disputes within schemes. When people are living within close proximity to each other, they're bound to be issues, and the establishment of the Community Scheme Ombud service, I must say, has taken off, and they hear thousands of mediations and adjudications every month, and there really has been a big need for it in South Africa. But what is a community scheme? What does the Community Scheme Ombud cover? Who do they cover, and what kind of disputes do they cover? So a community scheme is defined in the Community Scheme Ombud Service Act as either a sectional title scheme or a homeowners association, either constituted simply with a constitution or else with an MOI in terms of the Companies Act. So also these large golf estates and sprawling estates, they all fall under the Community Scheme Ombud. Then you look at share blocks, retirement villages, and social cooperatives. I know for a fact, because I sat on the board of the Community Scheme Ombud for 2 years, that they are looking at extending the definition to things like student accommodation and hostels, and anywhere where you find people living in communities would fall under this particular ombud. The ombud also has the discretion to add different kinds of schemes under the definitions. So that's really what it covers. And how does it work? You have to pay levy. How's it funded? I mean, every owner of a unit in a sectional title scheme and in a freehold association, homeowners association, or in a retirement village has got to pay a levy, and the scheme involved pays it directly over every quarter to the Community Scheme Ombud Service. And what is that levy? Well, the levy is up to 500 Rand. You don't pay anything on a levy up to 500 Rand. So you look at your monthly levy, and if it's 500 Rand or less, there's nothing to pay. But from 500 Rand and over, it's calculated on 2% of the amount over 500 Rand, and it's capped at an amount of 40 Rand. So you'll never pay more at the moment than 40 Rand a month for the privilege of using the Community Scheme Ombud service. And that service is for what? I mean, what do you want a Community Scheme Ombud service for? Well, there are 3 things really that you need to look at, and that is corporate governance. So the housing of corporate governance documentation will take place at CSOS. The deeds office will no longer be the custodian of documentation like your rules, etc. Only the conveyancing side the deeds office will deal with. But rules and annual returns of complexes will all be housed at the Community Scheme Ombud Service, and those rules will receive a compliance certificate from the Community Scheme Ombud Service. The second thing that they're going to deal with are disputes, dispute resolution. That's really their core function, and something which people are utilizing. So say, for example, you have a dispute in a scheme. Usually you would have to go to attorneys, or you'd have to go to the managing agent or the body corporate to resolve the dispute. Now, for a mere 50 Rand, you can apply to the Community Scheme Ombud to have the dispute resolved. You would then go into a mediation process. Once you're in a mediation process, if that works, then you would sign an agreement and everything would be resolved. If it doesn't work, it would go to an adjudication process. So you've got qualified attorneys who adjudicate these disputes, and like a judge, but it's an informal environment, and you don't have attorneys who represent anybody, and the adjudication would just cost you an extra 100 Rand to have the matter adjudicated. Once a matter has been adjudicated upon, it means that you can get a court order if that person ignores the adjudication award. You can actually get a court order, a high court or magistrate's court order, depending on the nature and amount involved regarding the matter, and you can, that's really a very highly regarded award, because if they still ignore that, then that person or the body corporate would be in contempt of court, which is really, really very serious. So there is this organization. Also, I must tell you that there are certain people who can't afford the Community Scheme Ombud Service, and the CSOS levy would be waived for those people. People who earn less than 5,500 Rand as a net income in one family would not have to pay the CSOS levy. Also, anybody residing in a mid-care or frail care facility, or who receives a SASSA grant, would be excluded from having to pay the CSOS levy. So the Community Scheme Ombud Service is really there, it's available, and the number of mediations and adjudications have really justified the need for this kind of service. And it's important for all complexes to be registered. Find out, as an estate agent, if you're dealing with one of your complexes that you're selling in, find out if they're registered with the Community Scheme Ombud Service, and let them know, the trustees let them know about the service and what disputes they hear. The disputes that the Ombud Service hear are actually clearly set out in Section 39 of the Community Scheme Ombud Service Act. And those are disputes that deal with behavior, that deal with financial issues, that deal with corporate governance issues. And from my experience, the majority, by far, of the disputes that are heard at the Community Scheme Ombud revolve around financial issues. So people who are not sure what their levy is for, why they should be paying their levy, how the levy was arrived at, also things like lack of maintenance. There was a really interesting adjudication award that we were involved with, involving a complex in one of the upmarket areas in Gauteng, where the award was such that it ordered the trustees to properly maintain the building, and it said that the trustees were negligent in their duties, and they breached their fiduciary duties, which actually opened up a whole can of worms, which meant that they could be sued in their personal capacity. So that was involving a drainage problem, and where the trustees just hadn't pulled out all the stops to fix a problem in a unit, and it caused untold trouble to the unit owner. We've also had adjudications regarding pets, where an owner brought an application to allow his bull terriers to stay there, and the adjudication award was such that he wasn't allowed to keep the bull terriers because of the way they behaved and the trouble that they caused within the scheme. We've had adjudication orders of all types, but there's no doubt that the financial issues come to the fore. And also, it was always interesting for me to find that it's the over 50s who complain the most, and maybe not so surprisingly, it's the men who complain the most. So we've got to utilize this scheme. I think it's great that it's available. I think it's just going to go from strength to strength, and we can encourage owners to utilize it. Also, tenants can utilize. I've mentioned it before. Tenants now have the opportunity to utilize the Community Schemes Ombud service, and should really do so whenever they can. That brings us to the end of our 5 episodes. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jan Jordaan and his team for allowing me to chat to all of you, and for his hospitality and a generosity of spirit. And I'd also like to show you again, if you'd like easy access to all the information that I've been talking about, have a look at purchasing a copy of Demystifying Sectional Title on www.demystifyingsectionaltitle.co.za. We put a lot of love and care into writing, and we wrote specifically for people who are not au fait with the law, to make it easy and understandable, and to put all these legal concepts into plain English. Thank you so much for listening. Go out, be safe, take care, and good luck with all your sales in future.
Thank you, Marina. I found it exceptionally interesting, and I'm sure you did as well. And I hope that the knowledge that Marina has shared with us all has empowered you to give a better service, and that you will be even more successful with the sale of your sectional title units. As I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Remember, Marina is the co-author of the book Demystifying Sectional Title. If you want to buy a copy, you're welcome to contact her. They have got stock available at their offices in Bedford View, and you can buy a copy from Marina at her office. I hope you enjoyed it, and until we chat again, thank you. Cheers.